Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dr. Muhammad Zaki and my fellow friends. Today our group will present about diplomacy. Before we start, I will introduce you our group member. The first group member is Lee Doni, 262916, Shamira binti Hashim, 271587, Farizatul Atira binti Ishaq, 271775, and myself, Salima Jasmine binti Muhammad Razi, 272080. Okay, I will begin this presentation with the introduction of diplomacy. Diplomacy stands accepted as the mainstay of the process of relations among nations. The process of establishment of relations among nations begins effectively by the establishment of diplomatic relations among nations. Harold Nicholson once said that diplomacy is the management of international relations by means of negotiations. The method by which these relations are adjusted and managed by ambassadors and envoys the business or art of diplomats. The word of diplomacy is derived from the original Greek word diploma, from which it comes means something that had been folded in two. It is a distant relative of our word double for a document. And from Oxford English Dictionary, diplomacy is the management of international relations by negotiation. Diplomacy is often confused with foreign policy, but the terms are not synonymous. Diplomacy is the chief, but not the only, instrument of foreign policy which is set by political leaders, though diplomats, military and intelligence officers that may advise them. By the 20th century, however, the diplomatic practices introduced in Europe had been adopted throughout the world, and diplomacy had expanded to cover summit meetings and other international conferences, parliamentary diplomacy, the international activities of supranational or subnational entities, unofficial diplomacy by non-governmental elements, and the work of international civil servants. For example, negotiations hosted by President Carter in the late 1970s between Egyptian President Sadat and Israel Prime Minister that resulted in the Camp David Peace Accords. Next slide will be continued by Adira. She will explain several types of diplomacy.
Thank you, Sabrina, for the introduction. Now, I would like to present about type of diplomacy. The first type of diplomacy is gunboat diplomacy. Gunboat diplomacy is an aggressive foreign policy applied with the use of highly visible displays of military that usually never of power to impart a threat of warfare as a means of forcing cooperation. It is to use for a highly visible displays of military power to force the cooperation of a foreign government in the world. This happens when powerful nations act on small nations by showing their superior capabilities as illustrated by their naval assets. So, in gunboat diplomacy, they use their naval forces to occupy the territory or border that they want. For example, in 1943, China used two destroyers as survivors departed on China's first long-range naval expedition to join the global armada in the pirate waters of Somalia is a step in China's rise as a world power. The US and India have worked together to build maritime security cooperation with China prior to Beijing established a habit of conducting a military strike solo. The second type of diplomacy is cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy is defined as a course which are based on and utilize the exchange of ideas, values, tradition, and other aspects of cultural identity. Also to strengthen relationship, enhance social-cultural cooperation between countries, promote national interests, and beyond. It is application and implementation of the theory of cultural diplomacy, including of all models that have been practiced by individuals, community, and state. Cultural diplomacy is to promote art, artists, and the cultural sense of their home country through exhibition, concert, lectures, and other means of cultural exchange. For example, is international exchange programs such as the Fulbright program. The Fulbright program is one of the USA programs that the country invests in people and encourages them to study and travel in USA. And this program contains a positive bias and regardless of race and others. The third type of diplomacy is economic diplomacy. Economic diplomacy is encompassing the economic and commercial dimensions of traditional regional diplomacy. It aims to leverage existing and well-established networks of communication and collaborative framework for many years with other countries and institutions to serve the country economy, particularly to explore new markets for export of good products and services, economies of business to invest in our country and promote the country as a multifaceted tourist destination offering a variety of attractions. Economic diplomacy uses of political influence and relationship to promote and improve international trade and investment, to improve functioning of market, and to address failures and to reduce costs and rise of cross-border transactions, including property rights. Lastly, the type of diplomacy is conference diplomacy. Conference diplomacy is the professional diplomats are rarely dominant in conferences where the main role is usually played by politicians in the country, concerned or experts, especially at the summit. Head of states or government or foreign minister will meet bilaterally or multilaterally. In these diplomats, many politicians play an important role in representing their own country. This is also where personal relations between heads of states matter can accelerate the process. Conference diplomacy are through delegations that represent countries and their interests while committees discuss and negotiate solutions to specific issues. That's all from me. Now I will pass to Sabrina for function of diplomacy.
Thank you, Atira, for the explanation about type of diplomacy. Now I will be continue to present about function of diplomacy. There are 4 functions of diplomacy, which is the strengthen relationship or promote friendly relation, enhance national image, protecting and maximize national interests, and promote peace. The function of diplomacy is strengthen relationship or promote friendly relation. Promoting friendly relations between the sending state and the receiving state, developing the economic, cultural, and scientific relations. The task of diplomats include the promotion of good relations between countries in all spheres. This requires active contacts with all sectors of the local population, not only the officials and the elites. Diplomats are expected to entertain guests on a regular basis, hence the need for them to have good knowledge of both universal and local protocol rules and a good practice of cross-cultural communication. For example, in Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and Optional Protocols, Act 31E, as promoting friend relations. Okay, the second function of diplomacy diplomacy is to enhance the national image and reputation. Through diplomacy, other countries can see and analyze their efficiency and reliability in solving a problem, indirectly conducting diplomatic relations with that country. According to Nicholson, diplomacy is neither the invention nor the pastime of some particular political system, but is an essential element in any reasonable relation between man and man and between nation and nation. The reputations prove that the country values peace and have a good tolerance to deals. In build a good national image and reputation. This happens because the era of globalization, the image of the country has increasingly determined its importance in the world. According to Unhold, since the advance of globalization, national image and reputation have become ever more critical assets in the modern world. It also can promote a positive image of the country internationally and within interest groups. Next, the third point is protecting and maximize national interests. Promoting interest to strengthen the others. To maximize the national interest, a country should promote foreign travel, promote trade, and rescheduling of repayment loans to reach agreements and resolve problems between the states. Besides, when diplomacy fails, there may be a war. But even during war, diplomacy is supposed to solve disputes too. This means diplomacy could protect a state from a war. Diplomacy strives to establish an international order conducive to the non-violent settlement of disputes and to cooperation among states. The first function of diplomacy is promoting peace. Diplomacy is the tool for advancing the national security of the country it serves. It exists to mutual understanding between and citizens of other countries cannot bring a nation to an armed war. Diplomacy works to create peace through negotiations and with other nations. Generally speaking, diplomacy is a form of establishing trust. Confidence-building events such as diplomatic summits and meetings serve as a forum for countries engaged in discussions, promote collaboration, resolve misunderstandings, both bilateral and multilateral. For example, the United Nations Organization remains the single largest and most influential international diplomatic organization. In the United Nations, countries must work for the common good of the world, and in doing so, they must maintain peace and prevent conflict. The next slide will be presented by Lidoni, and she will explain about the roles of diplomatic agents. Thank you for the explanation. Good morning, everyone. I am Lidoni. In the following section, I will explain roles of diplomatic agents. Basically, diplomatic agents are the people who practice diplomacy. Firstly, diplomatic agents are the national representatives of their home country. They represent their country in political, economic, and social issues in order to properly relationship. However, if they behave inappropriately, it can affect the relationship between the two countries. For instance, the North Korean ambassador to Malaysia was expelled by Malaysia after he criticized Malaysia handling of Kim Jong, the half brother of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Furthermore, diplomatic agents are required to maximize their national interest.
Contributing and country diplomatic, which is promoting their home country in order to attract more tourism, trade, and foreign investors. Secondly, is through negotiation, which diplomatic agents negotiate on behalf of their nation in settling a dispute or rescheduling the payment of agents need to report the condition government living. They will their home. Agents will collect and report the information that confer the national interest and also advise the home country government on how should they respond to the issue of her. What they need point one
the challenge confronting diplomatic agents. First one is the challenge that diplomatic agents want to agree is for difference between of the two countries because of different countries that different the law that apply must also be different even though both laws are still in compliance with law. Because of Malaysia adheres to the principle of fair independence of the country. Therefore, Malaysia supports Palestine to establish peace in the West Asian region. Malaysia is not in a relationship with Israel for the sake of invading Palestinian sovereignty. In addition, Malaysia adheres to the principle and the United Nations for the protection of peace. Therefore, Malaysia supports all the resolutions adopted by the UN, United Nations to achieve and maintain world peace. The next one is the social and the cultural differences between the two countries. This is due to cultural differences, especially in the language and the customary norms there. The language and made it difficult for diplomats to communicate with foreigners because some countries are very proud of their native language, such as European countries as well as China and Japan, even though English is one of international intermediary languages. In the context of custom and cultural differences, there are also cultural differences between countries, and it is also difficult for the country political culture make it easier for diplomats to work than country political cultures such as corruption. The third one is threat to personal security. Diplomats in state and turbulent country or country experiencing natural disasters, environment development, bombings, shooting, and other acts of violence by the local against the local government are signs of protest that have made the country to occupy. Else, it may be that the country where the diplomat is in charge of the outbreak of infectious disease. For example, protests taking place in Hong Kong around 2019 caused disparity among Malaysian and Malaysian embassy on office due to tension between the people and the local government. The last one for the challenge confronting is technology differences. The level of technological advance for each country is different, so it makes it difficult for diplomats in country. In other words, technological differences create risks, which include information leakage, hacking, and anonymity of internet users. Hacking is another risk, which has existed since the internet. Another challenge of technology differences is the culture of anonymity. Anyone can adopt any pronoun and even act anyone. Anyone can mimic and pretend to be someone else or actively to mischief.
Shamira, for the explanation about challenges. For the conclusion, diplomacy is important to facilitate various areas of human interests. The category diplomatic agents with predetermined ranking and privileges established under customary practices and conventional law. Overall, we have analyzed the type and the functions of diplomacy, evaluate the important roles of diplomatic agents, and investigate the challenges faced by diplomatic agents. Diplomacy is the art and practice of conducting negotiations between representative states. Diplomacy entails influencing the decisions and conduct of foreign governments and officials through dialogue, negotiation, and other non-violent means. When you negotiate or broker a deal between two parties who are angry, this is an example of a time where you have shown diplomacy. When a president sits down to talk to the president of another foreign country in order to try to resolve a tense situation, this is an example when diplomacy is necessary. Thank you.